Today we're getting a G4 hybrid canopy fitted on the Trident MR. We'll walk you through the installation step. So the first step obviously is unboxing the canopy and getting the canopy open and out of the box, and removing the box with the hardware in it, which is packed inside of the canopy. You then have to prepare the tub of the vehicle. That means cleaning the top edge of the tub, removing any existing accessories, etc. You will then proceed with applying the rubber seal, as we've already done here. The rubber seal being applied on the top edge of the tub all the way around. The next step is you lift the canopy onto the tub. You use the included brackets to hold the canopy down. If it's a drill installation, you'll drill and install the bolts. And then the last step would be to connect up the lights of the canopy, that being the internal light and also the exterior lights of the canopy. Before applying the rubber seal, you want to make sure the top edge of the tub is completely clean. That way you don't have any dirt trapped in between, and also it allows the seal to actually stick properly on the tub. So this is probably the most difficult part of the install, is actually just lifting the canopy. So you probably want to have 3 to 4 people ideally to lift it. We obviously use a forklift here in the workshop, and we've made like a custom chain system to hook it up onto the 4 corners. If you do have a forklift, that'll be very easy. You just run a strap or a chain and just hook it up onto the rails of the canopy. But if you don't have that, then just a couple of people just lifting it up from each side and just drop it down onto the tub gently. We'll just have to move it a little bit in order for it to get all lined up and sit properly. You want to check both sides, make sure the canopy is sitting nice and flush, equal on both sides, and also how it's positioned backwards and forwards, so it's not too far back and not too far in. But you'll just have to just compare both sides and make sure that it's all lined up nice and equal. So the next step is to take out your bag of hardware, lay everything out on a nice and flat working surface like we've done here. It's also a good idea to put something on the base of the tub just to protect it while you're installing the canopy. Now if you look here, we've got 6 brackets in this specific set for this car. We've got 6 brackets, 3 each side. We've got associated stainless steel hardware. You've got your M8 and your M12 bolts, 6 of each, and you've got corresponding spring and flat washers for both. And then you've got also some nut-setted plates if you need to use them. So this is, I'll show you where they go. You could also use normal nuts if you've got good access. And then you've got these foam strips and I'll show you where these go. These are for where the brackets clamp onto the canopy to help it grip better, and also to protect the canopy itself. I'll show you how to assemble one of the brackets. So just grab one part and another, just like that. And then you're gonna grab your M8 bolt, your spring washer, and your flat washer, right? And this one goes through and bolts in there, right? So that's the general setup, just like that. And you can start working on your other ones and get all of your brackets prepared in sort of the same way. Just keep it nice and loose, and you can put it onto the canopy then. So when you're working on the canopy, the most important thing is to get everything lined up so the canopy is in the exact right position that you want it to be. And then you'd want to use your clamp brackets, 3 on each side, and that's before you start drilling. So once you drill, obviously you can't move the canopy anymore. So you want to have these done, everything is in the right position, and then you can start drilling. When you are putting these on, the exact position is not really that relevant, because you want one towards the back, roughly in here. You want one towards the middle, wherever it's more convenient for you, because some vehicles will have some tub liners and some tubs will have parts that stick out, which makes it hard to put it in the exact center. So you can go on either side, doesn't make a big difference. And you want one towards the front of the canopy as well. So as long as it's spread nice and evenly, that's fine. So here I've got the foam bits that I showed you before, and I did a quick test, and that's where I'll be putting the bracket, right there. Right? So just where the teeth, I guess the teeth of the bracket sits on the metal of the canopy, on the top, and also on the bottom. So that's that bit of the bracket there, which goes on the bottom. I'm going to put the foam bits onto that. So that's the top one there. The bottom one's gonna be hard, a little bit harder, but a little bit tricky. But just try to get it roughly in the same spot as the top one. And yeah, I think I've got it there. And now what I'll do is, we take the bracket that we had prepared before and just feed it under and up and over the top. And make sure it's sitting on that foam protective tape there. And just tighten up the bolts with your fingers. You don't have to tighten them fully at this stage. Just try to get as much as you can get done. I'll probably just leave that at this spot because I'll probably need a spanner to continue, but I'll just leave that there. And I'm going to repeat the same process for all the other brackets on both sides. And then before tightening it up, I'm going to go out to do a final check, make sure that the canopy is in the right place, and then I'll come back and I'll tighten all of these brackets. So after putting all the 6 brackets on and tightening all of those up, we've gone ahead and we've drilled. So we've drilled through the elongated holes in the canopy and through the edge of the tub. And we've done 4 bolts each side. You can do 6 if you want, but even 4 is pretty sufficient. So we've used our drill bit. As you can see here, the drill bit is quite long, so we've gone ahead and we've put just something like that, just as a drill stop, because as you're drilling through this, you don't want to be going through to the other side and damaging the actual tub of the car. So you put the drill stop there. Once you drill, make sure you deburr your holes and then you seal it. We just use a paint marker like this, but you can also use just anything you've got lying around, spray paint, you know. Take a cup, put some spray paint, and then just grab a small brush and just run it along to seal the metal so it doesn't rust. And then all we've done is we've taken our bolt and washer from the outside, and we've put the nut from the inside and just tightened it up then. Now the next step would be to connect up the lights. So we've got the internal light and we've got the two external lights, and the cables for these are all in here, and we'll show you how those will go on. So we're continuing our install video on an LDV. As you might have noticed, the first car was a Triton MR. The customer was waiting, and given that we usually turn these around in about 4 hours time, we did the handover for that one. So we're continuing it on this beautiful LDV here, and it's looking good. Now that we've got the rest of the canopy installed, we're moving on to the lights. So we've got our dual external lights on the outside, and we've got an internal light here facing towards the inside of the canopy. So the external lights having parker, brake and indicator functionality on both means we have to wire them individually to both tail lights. So you'll get a wiring harness like that included with the lights. So it's got the sleeve on it, and it's long enough to reach into the tail light area, so that's good. And you've got one on each side, obviously. So the colors correspond as such, the red being your parkers, the yellow is the indicator, the white is the brake, and the black is the negative. So I've taken out the tail light here. We're going to be wiring each one to the corresponding wire on the tail light. Now, which wire connects to which on the tail light depends on the vehicle. If you're not comfortable with wiring, of course, we would always recommend getting an auto electrician to do this part for you. But if you are comfortable, you can do it. It can be a DIY, but you just have to know the risks. So you'll have to find out. For example, when you're connecting your brake wire, you'll have to find out which is the brake wire on the tail light. Splice it. Obviously, just twist the wires, solder, and then just make sure you use heat shrink and electrical tape to tidy everything up. So we're going to do that now. And then for the internal light, we've got the positive on that one here. That's the positive cable. Now this one you can, if you've got a 12-volt system, you can connect it up to a USB or a 12-volt cigarette lighter, that sort of thing, to connect it up to a 12-volt so it runs off of that. Otherwise, if you don't, you can run it from your tail lights. Just take power, connect it up to the parkers on the tail light. So it'll always be running when your lights are on, which is when it's dark. You'll have power to it, and then when you open the back door, it'll turn on its own. So just before we finish, I'll be going through all of these bolts in the roof, which hold down the roof rail. And I've just got a number 10 socket, 10mm socket, and I'm just gonna go through and tighten all of these. They should be fairly tight when you get them, but obviously it's always better to run through and make sure you tighten all of these bolts. And depending on how much weight you'll be carrying on the roof, how much off-road driving you'll be doing, you'll want to go through these every 3 to 6 months usually. But if you're doing heavy driving on corrugated roads, you could go through them more often. And it just depends on your use case. But just make sure you do it as part of your sort of general maintenance for the canopy. Going through these bolts here as well for the brackets, make sure everything is nice and tight every 3 to 6 months, again depending on your driving. Some final things to take note of and to adjust if needed would be the locks. As you can see here, we've got compression locks on all the doors. Now, sometimes if you notice that the lock is very stiff, or if you notice that you've got a gap here and that the door's not locking properly, what you can do is adjust the locks. So if you look on the underside of it, you'll have a rubber stopper here, which you can take off. I don't need to in this case because it's perfect, but if you do need to, you can take that off and adjust these bolts. So there's a bolt here, which has 2 nuts on this side, you can take out the nylock nut on the end and loosen the other one, and you can adjust the length of the bolt, and that sort of determines how far in the lock will push it, and that you can use that to adjust how the door locks. Now another thing you'll notice here is we've got this strip here, which is the tailgate lock, and it can be a little bit of a protector as well when you're putting things in. How this goes on is it gets screwed into the top of the tailgate. So essentially you want to line it up nice and center and just get the self-tapping screws. You just want to drill a small pilot hole and then use the screws to lock it down. And what this does is, if you do decide to install it, is when you close the door of the canopy, that will prevent the tailgate from opening. And just like that, the canopy is on. And just to recap what we've done, so we started off with the bare tub of the vehicle, cleaning the top of the tub, applying the rubber seal. We then unboxed our canopy, took out all the brackets and the hardware, laid everything on a flat surface so we know all the brackets and all the different parts. We lifted the canopy and put it on the tub. Then we took our brackets, our 6 clamp brackets, which were included with the kit, 3 on each side, equidistant from each other, onto the canopy. Once we had that on, obviously we made sure that the canopy was aligned onto the tub. Once the brackets were on, we then drilled the holes and used the bolts to lock it in place. Afterwards, we connected up the lights. So we had our external lights and our internal light, which were wired up to the tail lights of the vehicle. And then we just did some final checks. That is, we checked the bolts of the roof rail, and then we checked for adjustments on the compression locks, as well as the tailgate lock on the canopy. And that's pretty much the whole installation process for the G4. Thanks very much for watching. If you do need help with anything, our professional team is always available. You can get in touch with us, Grand 4x4.